Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, I will say only two words to Eric Schmidt. Welcome to Sciences Po. Thank you to have chosen Sciences Po. And now, as I know that you don't have so much time, it's time for you to get the floor. Thank you.
I want to thank your president, Richie Richard, for inviting us here today. I have a speech I'd like to give, but since I have this audience, I'd actually like to take a minute and make a very important announcement about Google, and one that we just made a few minutes ago in public. And I'm sure that in the press conference that follows, there'll be lots of questions about this. We believe that the French people are very sophisticated in their use of culture. We believe the French people are very sophisticated in their use of the internet and technology. And we have already decided to increase our business investment in France because of the economic success of France, the many, many good things that you all have done. So we have made a set of decisions which we're announcing today, literally right here, which are very important, and something which people have asked about for a very long time. The first is that we've decided, and I think that at a university like this you'll understand why, we've decided to set up a very significant engineering center here in Paris. And we will get started by hiring, we like people fresh out of the top universities in France, and we'll get started here very, very soon, literally in the next week, to get started building this center. And this will be a center that will not just build products for France, but will build products for the world. We believe very, very strongly in looking at the quality of the graduates and the quality of the technical talent, the business talent, the public policy talent that we can now get through the major universities, major businesses, key leadership positions. I'm very, very proud to say that this has been in discussion for a very long time, and it's clearly the right thing to do. The second announcement that we have just made, and I'm pleased to say here publicly that for the first time, is we've looked at, in Europe, the importance of culture and the importance of European culture, European creativity, non-English languages, the arts and sciences, and the things that you all do so well. And I think you know what I'm talking about. So we've decided to put our cultural institute, literally create one, here in Paris that will be for all of Europe. And we'll take all of the digital resources that we have, all of the scanning, all of the images, all of the investment, and run it through Paris. We're also having, we are also having an outside advisory board of leading creative people, academics, and so forth to help us make sure that we're working on the things of greatest value to the citizens of Europe. I can think of no better place, because of the commitment to culture and the commitment to the talent that I see before me, to do this in Paris. The third thing we're announcing, and you can see there's actually, just here, there's four. Students like to know the list, right? So there's four. The third is that we've made a decision to go ahead and increase our investment in science universities in France by many millions of dollars in the form of grants. And this is because we have looked at the quality of the research and the quality of the output in computer science, in mathematics, in the sciences in general, and it is superb. This is not a surprise to you. That's why you're here. So I'm very excited about that. And then the final thing that we're announcing today is a very large program around getting small and medium-sized businesses to come to Google and to use Google to build their businesses. That's obviously good for Google, but we think it's particularly good for the businesses and therefore good for the economic choices in France. So why are we doing this? Why are we making these announcements today? It's the right thing to do for Google's business. It's the right thing to do for France. It's the right thing to do for Europe. If you look, the economic recovery has been led by Germany and France. I think you all should be congratulated for all of that. And we have every reason to believe that the adoption of the internet and technology, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, will give us a tremendous business advantage for doing this. Another reason that we're doing this is that we've received incredibly positive support from President Sarkozy and the entire Élysée Palace. And their whole team has said, we want to make sure that your business is working well, that you create jobs, create investment in France. And they have offered their support and helped to make sure that any barriers we might have in getting through any regulations and so forth would be addressed. So I want to thank your president and his entire team for helping make this possible. So with that, what I'd like to do, and again, I'm very excited about this. This is a very big deal for Google. We do this relatively rarely. And so from my perspective, this is a historic moment. So thank you all for that. And so what I'd like to do for a few minutes is talk about technology and computers and where information is going to go. And with an audience as sophisticated as this, I would hope you would tell me things that I don't know about how you use computers and information and technology, and so we'll have questions as well. I have become very interested in the question of how will people change their patterns? How will they use computers and information in new ways? And I've become convinced that we're on the dawn of a new age, an age of augmented humanity. By augmented humanity, what I mean is that we as humans get better because of our use of computers. And that's what I want to talk about today. And I have a strong belief that computers should work for us and not the other way around. In other words, they should do what we want when we want it and get us the systems and answers that we need right then and there, not the other way around. And in fact, that these computers will entertain and inform and educate us, but most importantly, they can make the world a better place for us, and we are the customer, we humans. So it's interesting that when you think about it, you think about the technology that you all use today, you take for granted the presence of this broad internet. When you have a game console, what good is your game console if it won't go online? What good is your disconnected music player? Because as you walk down the streets here in beautiful Paris, there's music available to you where you are, and you can get it on the internet. So we're no longer in a situation where it's okay to have computers and devices that aren't connected to this wonderful internet. So from my perspective, if computers are here to serve humans and not the other way around, what's the goal? The goal is to make us happier, literally to make us have more fun, right? And how do we have fun? With people, enjoying ourselves, learning, asking questions, becoming better at what we do. That's their goal. That's the goal that we have for our computers. So what's happening, if you think of this as a happiness theorem, or in a university we'll use the word theorem, there's a set of things that we can do. The first is we could take a look at this explosion of smartphones. Everybody here has a mobile phone. I suspect all of you have a smartphone. Some of you have iPhones, some of you have Android phones, some of you have Nokia phones, some of you have BlackBerries. It doesn't matter. The important point is that there's a new generation of technology called smartphones, and it's the iconic product of our time. So, for example, in a couple of years, smartphones will surpass PC sales. Who would have thought? The mobile web adoption, that is the web that your mobile phone uses, is growing 8 times faster than the equivalent PC web at the same time. So not only is this true, but it's happening quicker, faster, supporting my point. The second, of course, part is what we'll call pervasive connectivity. Have you gone on vacation and had no connection at all and discovered that you're depressed? I have. Even if you have a slow connection, you feel a little bit connected. Here in Paris, you have bandwidth that is phenomenal. All throughout France, you have excellent bandwidth. It's interesting that 10 years ago, I was very worried that that France would never catch up. France was obsessed with the Minitel, if you remember the Minitel, right? Obsessed with it, slow, small keyboard, and so forth, and did not like the internet. That was what everybody said. But over the last 5 years, internet adoption through broadband and others has been the fastest in Europe, and now it's fair to say that France has among the top 2 or 3 fastest internets in the globe, with some of the most committed users of the internet in France. And it shouldn't surprise you. The French love information, they love culture, they love things that are sophisticated. So it's great that the French are now using the internet so powerfully. And today, of course, with new technology like LTE, which will give you 50 megabits per second. Today, you're using something called UMTS, which is up to maybe 5 megabits per second, so another factor of 10 in speed for your mobile device. All of a sudden, you could do even more amazing things. It's interesting that one count has 35 billion, that is billion with a B, devices connected now to the internet in one form or another. And what's interesting about this is that the combination of the phone and the network allows you to build new platforms. I'll give you an example of a relatively powerful one. We demonstrated in Germany, and this is in German, but you'll see the relevance, and it would be true in France as well, 2 days ago, the following. In an Android phone, an English speaker speaks in and speaks in English, and then the response comes back in German. What happens is he speaks in English, the person who's German he's speaking with hears the German, he responds in German, we translate it back to English. How is that done? Now, for me, this was historic because I have talked about this idea for years, but I never thought it would be possible to do this because it's so difficult. So what happens is you talk to your phone, and the phone digitizes your voice and sends the digitized voice to computers in Google. These computers might be in France, they might be in Amsterdam, they might be in the US, they're somewhere. Doesn't matter. Those computers then translate your voice into text, and from the text we then translate it into the other language, in this case German or French, text to text, and then we use voice generation to take the text and send it back out as the other language. We can do this now in real time. The way it works is the phone just collects the data and represents it. The real computing power is out in the data centers. It's out in the cloud. This is known as cloud computing. So when you think about your device, your computer, don't think of it as a computer by itself. Think of it as a computer linked to supercomputers that are doing this work for you in real time. So one way to think about this is you're using a supercomputer in your pocket. So in my case, I can ski the downhill in the Vancouver Olympics. Using my phone, I can simulate hiking all the way to the top of Mount Everest. If I want to come visit Paris and I'm sitting in my office in California, I can look at the pictures of the Eiffel Tower and so forth and feel the feeling of being here in such a beautiful city. All of that is possible because the computers in the back are bringing that information to my device as I do it. What's interesting is that I can also now, here for example, I can take my phone and take a picture, and using Google Goggles, Google will tell me what it is, typically a landmark in French case, and it will tell me the history of it, and I love that. So this form of artificial intelligence is very real now, and it's very possible. Now, in November of 1990, Bill Gates at Comdex, this is 20 years ago, said, you'll have information at your fingertips, all the information that someone might be interested in, including information they can't even get today. So I'm pleased to say that we're pretty much there. Hearing, speaking, sight, even thinking. So by getting this here, we should be able to save time, to have the computers remember the things we're no good at remembering, and have the computers make suggestions to us of things that we should do, and in return, we have the time to spend on the things that we all care about. So in Google's case, and again, you all know Google as a search engine, I like to think of this as a new definition of Google's ultimate goal. that we want to help humans think and understand, and we wanted to do it fast. Now, never underestimate the power of fast. Speed is everything. Boom, 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 over and over and over again. The faster we make search, the more people search. The faster the networks are, the more usage we see of online services. This is all very good. So the closer we can get to the speed of the brain, the closer we can get there, the more we can help you achieve whatever ultimate goal you have. What we want people to do is to use Google to help us with their thinking and their questioning process. It's interesting that we're here in a university, and a quote that I like is from an American chemist, Linus Pauling. Satisfaction of one's curiosity is one of the greatest sources of happiness in life. And so universities and education are fundamentally about asking questions in a deep way. And Google can help there in some very, very real way. And we want you to do more and more and more. Now, we make hundreds of improvements to search every year. Yesterday, we introduced something called Instant Google, for those of you who are logged in. Did people see that or not? It is weird, unbelievable. You sit there and go, oh my God. Because as you type, it does all the queries, right? And I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is so incredible, but it's so much faster. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm very proud to say that the people who are using it love it. And this happened yesterday in a worldwide launch. And Google spent literally hundreds of millions of dollars of extra hardware to be able to do that. So again, when you think of Google, think of that speed, the speed. It's now to the point where we answer the question as you're typing the question. That's what's so interesting about instant search. So where does search go? Well, with your permission, and I need to say that right up front, you'll probably want to give us permission to index your email, other things about you, personal email, a personal network of people and your relationship to them. And if you give us permission to do that, we can produce higher quality answers. And not only can we produce the answers as you type them, but we can also produce them even if you don't ask. Here I am, I happen to like history. Here we are in Paris, a beautiful city with tremendous history. As I travel down the roads, what I want is I want Google to constantly be telling me something that I don't know about this amazing city and its history and place. And because we know where you are, we can do that. Now, again, I have to choose this. It's something I'm interested in, and you can imagine others would not be. But I suspect many of you would be. We're also thinking about how do the questions go. So, for example, today you could say, what is today's weather? And what you're really asking is, do I need to take a raincoat or an umbrella to school? Right? That's the real question you're asking. Or you could be saying, should I water the plants? In other words, are the plants going to be watered by the rain or whatever? It's very hard to know what you meant, but we can get better. We can begin to anticipate that maybe you really care a lot about whether you should wear an umbrella or not, or not wear an umbrella, use an umbrella or not. And we're also thinking about how we can make commerce and travel of the same kind even stronger. What's interesting about the mobile phones is that 1 out of 3 mobile phones now are queries about immediately around you. So as Google, I think, is probably the largest of the search engines, we see this phenomena of mobility and local information and this query so profoundly. It's interesting in mobile, our mobile business, of course, has gone very quickly. Our search traffic grew 50% in the last half year. It's more than doubled in the last year. And our strategy should be mobile first. So when you leave here and when you go to your career and so forth, think about building software and services that start with the mobile phone. Don't start on the PC, start on the mobile phone, because that's where the growth will ultimately be. And indeed, we, Google, do that as well. And Android, which you know is the free operating system that Google is providing to many carriers now, has more than 200,000 Android devices and 200,000 devices sold per day, and 60 devices from 21 hardware partners across 59 carriers and 49 countries. So I don't know what the math is, but you can imagine how very large this phenomena is going to be. It's interesting that search traffic in Android phones tripled in the first half. So we benefit, obviously, by the adoption of Android. There's a new browser called Chrome. Have you all seen this? Have you used this very much? People know what I'm talking about. The historic browsers were not really were not built for this new mobile and platform world that the internet provides. So we've built a browser that's very, very virus secure, very safe, very fast. In fact, the one that we released most recently is 4 times faster than the one we did 2 years ago. We have 70 million users and growing very quickly of Chrome. This is very, very strategic for Google. And because Chrome is more powerful, we can have deeper integration with the browser. So if you know what browsers do, it's possible within the browser to now run programs that help you, that make your life even that more interesting. Same thing about monetizing content. It's very important, and we talked about our investment in French culture and French digital information, that it's important that we improve the quality of the content on the web. I'm concerned that a lot of the quality on the web is not any good. So an example would be YouTube, a positive example. There are 24 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute, which is an astounding number. And even more astounding to me is there are 2 billion, that's billion with a B, views per day. So imagine how much time we are wasting of all of these people around the world. And of course, we want them to do even more of this. The business, of course, is doing very well. We have a couple billion monetized views per week and so forth and so on. So we also have a business which is around display, where we show picture ads, and those picture ads are also growing very, very quickly. We have more than 300 million visitors every day using this network. So to try to put this in perspective, I want to talk a little bit about Google and the world, and then I want to talk about the future, and then we'll go to your questions. We make investments. As we make investments, we understand that the internet is very disruptive. And for you, this is, I think, mostly positive. But for many industries, they are worried about this, and they're worried with us for good reasons. There's an economist named Joseph Schumpeter who said that capitalism inevitably leads to a perennial gale of creative destruction. And you know this from economics, you know this from management science, that this constant destruction and reinvention is painful, but it is in fact the best way to move society and economics forward. So the internet has replaced the economics of scarcity. It used to be that it was very difficult to make things, and now with the internet you have essentially infinitely low-cost distribution and an infinite number of copies. So that has completely changed a number of industries. And all of a sudden, those industries are under great pressure to change their business models, and I am very sympathetic to their challenges. Any business built on controlling the flow of information is having such a problem. And this is all both very exciting and terrifying at the same time. Exciting because of all the new changes and the scale, right? You can do something. You sitting here could do something that could have 1 million viewers in a day or in an hour, right? That was never possible, even 10 years ago. It's completely new. But it's also terrifying because this all has to do with information. And information is what people care about more than anything else. So I think it's reasonable to expect that there will be a lot of controversy for a very long time about information and disruption and the internet. And from my perspective, the debate is healthy. I would tell you that the changes that are going on in society, the use of information, the use of social networks and so forth and so on, are very profound. And I'm not sure society has quite figured out what to do with all of these changes. But what I do know is that customers love this stuff. They spend hours and hours and hours on this, and on and on and on. So when I think about the future, and I wanted to give you some examples of what the future could look like, I would say that I would begin by saying that we're just at the beginning of a set of golden age of breakthroughs in the internet. That we have enough money now, enough companies, enough good technical judgment, enough good business models that you'll see just the beginning now of a much broader set of things over the next 10 to 20 years. Who knows after that? And that in many ways the power of computer science, and I'm a computer scientist, that's my professional training, will help drive progress in virtually every space. We can help solve big problems. Global warming, for example. Google Earth is heavily used as a platform to monitor and understand the changes that we are making to our planet. And those changes are almost all bad. And we need to address this, and the people who deny them have their heads in the sand. It's very, very important that we pay attention to the science about this, and Google can make an important role in allowing people to visualize the changes that are occurring around them and in places they've never visited. In terrorism, we can help understand the flow of terrorism and their behavior, and people can monitor that better. In financial transparency, you can publish more information and let people know what you're doing. France was particularly good at regulating that, but other countries were not. And those other countries had huge personal cost for the mistakes that they made. Thank goodness you all did not have to go through this. But these are fundamentally information problems, and we can help address that. We can also help solve problems that people face every day. So imagine a near future where, to start with, you never forget anything. I don't know about you, I forget stuff all the time. But computers are very good at remembering things. They really are. In fact, they never forget unless you tell them to. And then sometimes you have to tell them twice or 3 times. The important point is that they're very good at making lists and remembering things and keeping memories of what they do, remembering your pictures and those sorts of things. Another example is you're never lost. I used to get lost in Europe all the time. I don't speak the languages, right? Where am I? Oh my God. Now, using Google Maps, I know exactly where I am. And I also have people who are around me who tell me where I am nowadays. But the fact of the matter is that as a student, you could wander around by yourself and never be lost. Pretty interesting. In fact, we know your position down to the meter in most cases. So all of a sudden, a new set of applications that are fun, gaming applications. In America, there are a couple that are very interesting. One is called Foursquare, another one is called Gowalla, where you basically are gaming, they're gaming systems around your location and where you're going and where your friends are. I think this is an important new area of entertainment and information that people will really use. And of course, your friends also know where you are, and so it's important that you will decide who you want to give that information to and who is not your friend. Another example is your car should drive itself. I'm sure the computer can drive the car better than you can. Furthermore, the computer can talk to the other cars, and they can negotiate who's going to go faster and who's going to pass the other. I know this sounds fantastic, but don't you think it'd be better to have computers driving cars than the average person driving a car? It's just a matter of getting the computers to the point where they have that level of accuracy. So not only are you not lost, but the car will take you where you need to go. Now, hopefully you'll be there to pay attention to it in case the car has a bug in it. But people, as an example, people who love the Earth can love it more because we have all of this information about what's really going on. We know where the streets are. We know where the stores are. We know where people are. You truly do have all the world's information at your fingertips, as Bill Gates spoke 20 years ago, because you have it in any language. Now, Americans forget that most people don't speak English. You all, because you work here and you're part of this, are very good English speakers. But most of the world actually likes the language that they choose and not English. And so this notion that somehow the internet can become truly global is very important. We today have options in our browser where everything gets translated into your own language, up to 100 different languages. This is phenomenal. And indeed, a statistic is that there are more than 160 million translations every day so far, and they're growing very, very quickly. We can also help you try to figure out what to pay attention to. One of the things that's happening is that there's so much information coming, I can't figure out what to do. I get overwhelmed. Do I look at Twitter? Do I look at Facebook? Do I look at my email? Do I answer the phone? Do I look on the web for something? How do I know how to spend my time? Well, again, Google and technologies like Google, because, again, I have to give it permission and so forth, but if I gave it permission, can actually help me search and monitor that information and help me decide what things are the most important. You're never lonely. Your friends are always one click away. There's always somebody to talk to. There's always somebody to chat with. They're all online, right? It's true for all of you. There's always somebody to speak with and to post about. And so your friends make Google and the web, your searches, your suggestions, and your entertainment that much more interesting. Another example is you're never bored. When I used to come here, because of the time change, I would wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'd turn on the French television, and I don't speak French. So I'd look at that for a while, and then there was nothing to do. So eventually I would fall back to sleep. Well, now I wake up at 3 in the morning, and there's the internet with all of that for hours, and then I go back to sleep. I'm not sure this is good, but it's very different. It's very, very different from a societal perspective. So instead of wasting time watching television, now I just waste time online, right? No problem. And we can suggest what games, movies, and videos for you to watch. And perhaps more importantly, you're never out of ideas. We can make suggestions for things for you to learn, to watch, and to entertain. And I would argue for you that this is a future that's not just for the elites. As I was growing up and when I was a student, the things that we are talking about now were only available to the very top part of society, the educated, the rich, and so forth. But now, this technology is available through smartphones and other internet access to more than 1 billion people. And in my lifetime, I strongly hope that it will get to 5 billion people, 6 billion people. And the impact that that will have on people in terms of hearing their voices, their creativity, art, and culture is uncountably fast, simply because of the number of people involved. So our goal, and I'll finish up by saying, our goal is to make the world a better place. It is a future to give people time to do what matters, thought, ideas, intuition, solutions, and doing what people love. A quote that I like from last week from William Gibson, who's a very famous writer, Google is made of us, a sort of coral reef of human minds and their products. So I would say to you that the opportunity is before all of us. You, as you work here diligently, as you graduate, as you go off and make your mark in society here in France and abroad, of course, it's our opportunity together to use all of this technology and all of this information to really make the world a much better place. So with that, thank you very much.